Hey, Marvin.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear us now, Martha?
Good evening, everyone. It's
Hey,
good to have you
Marvin.
all. Good to have you all join us. We have our leaders tonight, Gail Christie with First Congregational Christian Church and one of our co-chairs for our Justice and Witness Action Network, Virginia, will be leading tonight's training with our UCC leader and partner in this important work, Andrea Miller with Center for Common Ground. I can't stay for you for the duration of the training, but they have control of the Zoom meeting and are ready to proceed after a few minutes, giving people time to join.
Thank you, Marvin.
So it looks like we're still missing a few people who had signed up, so I guess we can wait a few more minutes. So Martha, are you on your phone and your computer now?
Yes, do I have to?
You have to turn one of them off or we'll get feedback.
Okay.
I got it. Yeah, I muted the computer, so that should be, oh, I can't tell which is which. Martha, can you talk? I may have to unmute or mute the other one.
So the other one is her phone number.
Ah, okay.
The one, the 202 phone number, I think that's her.
Ah, all right, all right. Well, that one needs to be okay. And then her computer connection needs to be muted.
Yeah, it looks like her computer connection is gone now.
Is gone.
I see your computer connection. Right.
So
Yeah,
while
there's
we're
still-
waiting for other folks to sign on, why don't we go around and introduce ourselves so that we know who's who? I will start. I'm Gail Christie. I'm with First Congregational UCC in Chesterfield, co-chair of the Virginia Justice and Witness Action Network. And I'm delighted that you are joining us tonight. I guess I'll go around my screen and call on people. Kathy, you're next.
I'm Kathy Frizey, and I'm a member of St. John's UCC in Richmond.
Great. And I see Rick.
Yes, I am Rick Sumner. I'm a volunteer with the Center for Common Ground.
Jean.
I'm Jean Wheelock, and I'm at Little River UCC in Annandale.
Okay, how about Hannah?
Hi, nice to see so many familiar faces. Hannah Chismar, I'm a member of Rock Spring UCC.
And I see
I'm
Lori.
gonna turn my camera off while I grab something to eat.
Yeah, that's
I'm here.
fine. I see Lori. Lori has joined us. Lori Forbes is the other co-chair of the Virginia Action Network. Lori, do you want to say hello?
Hi, I'm Laurie Forbes from Emmaus UCC in Vienna.
Great. And I get Martha. You got to unmute yourself.
Cat talk. And now here I am. Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm Martha Dickey. I'm in DC. I'm with Dunbarton United Methodist Church, and they don't know I'm here, so I'm only here for myself. So don't get too excited.
Oh, we're glad you're here. So we still seem to be missing a bunch of people, but I don't want to hold things up because we have a lot of ground to cover. So I will go ahead and turn things over to Andrea and she can get going.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Gail. Thank you all for joining us. I know a number of you have been here every year. There have been some very subtle changes in voter registration in Virginia. And I will be going over how we register voters as well as what those changes are. So let me, I'm living dangerously because I'm presenting my screen instead of downloading. So let's hope our neighbor doesn't decide to stream a movie right now, because I also live in semi-rural Virginia. Now, your organization, the reason you're here is you want to host a voter registration drive in Virginia. In 2013, they passed a law in Virginia that said anyone who was going to register voters had to be certified by Virginia Elect. The certification you will receive after this course tonight will expire on June 30th. The reason for that is Virginia law says all changes to voting rules, laws, and regulations go into effect on July 1st. It is for that reason that they expire all certifications on June 30th. So we'll see you all next year at about the same time. Now, what the purpose of our training is, make sure that you and your organizations comply with Virginia law and rules regarding voter reg, and make sure that any applications you collect are properly filled out for the general registrar to process. I'm going to skip this and just literally dive right into the course. Now, for some reason, they want us to know the history of the Virginia State Board of Elections, which ran elections from 1946 to 2014. In 2014, they created Virginia Elect, and Virginia Elect took over basically all processing of elections or running elections. So they created a new directive, elect. And so this is when you go to the website, it refers to elect. So it basically now runs elections in Virginia. So they are responsible for voter registration, absentee voting, ballot access for candidates, and campaign finance. The state board is the regulatory body. So they don't actually run the elections, they supervise or regulate elect. Now, because we have a new governor, the goals of elect are a little different than they used to be. Their mission and goal is make sure that elections are accessible. So one of the things that is really, really good is voters who are disabled, voters who are 65 and older in any county can request curbside voting. They want to make sure that elections are protected, secure, and verified. And because of that, they have modified some of the rules, and we'll be going over that. Now, when we register voters, they want us to look at a voter registration drive as being in two parts. Part number one is the actual registering of the voter. Part number two is the submission of the voter registration applications. And there have been changes, subtle, but changes in both. Now, when we're doing a voter registration drive, you can approach individuals, and what we do at Center for Common Ground is we ask voters, is their voter registration up to date? Rather than, are you registered to vote? Because many people believe that they are registered to vote, but if they actually went and checked their registration status, they would find that they are either A, inactive, or B, they may actually have been deregistered for not voting. So we find it's better to approach voters and say, is your voter registration up to date? At which point the voters will go, what? And then we help voters check their registration status. So explain the qualifications to vote, and then confirm if they do register on paper, who is going to turn in that application. Are you going to turn the application in? That means there is a receipt that you must provide that voter, and the information on the receipt has changed. If the voter is going to turn the application in themselves, then there's no receipt that you need to worry about. Now, if the person has a Virginia driver's license, they can register to vote online. When a voter registers to vote online, that is considered self-registration. So there is nothing that you need to give that voter other than the website vote.virginia.gov. We normally have tablets when we are doing voter registrations, so that if people do prefer to register online, and some young people may prefer to register online, then we can simply let people register online. Submitting the application. When the application is complete, if the voter wants us to deliver the application to the registrar's office, we have to provide them with a receipt. Now, you must deliver all your applications to the local voter registration office within 10 days of collecting that application. Or if it is right before the voter registration deadline, by 5 p.m. on the day of the election registration deadline. Now, Virginia now has same-day voter registration. So if you encounter voters who had planned to go out to the voter registration drive and somehow missed it, they will still be able to register and vote either during early voting or on election day. So we will be concentrating on voter registration using the paper forms. Now, number one, only Virginia residents can register to vote in Virginia. So if the person says, oh, I live in Maryland, no, we cannot register them to vote in Virginia. If they are going to be moving to Virginia, they should not register to vote in Virginia until they have moved. We do not allow people to register to vote using a future address. All right, they can only use their current address. Now, we use a lot of tools to make sure that the voter that we are registering is not already registered. With 4 pieces of information, you can check any person's voter registration status: their first name, their last name, the last 4 digits of their social security number, and the county where they reside. You can check that online and it will immediately come back with their name and their registration status. If they're active, they're good to go. If they are inactive, then we are going to need to update their voter registration. If they are no longer registered, then we're going to need to register them. Now, it normally goes without saying, when people are completing a paper application, and this will basically be a legal document, they need to write neatly so that not only can you read what they wrote, but the county registrar will be able to read what they wrote and properly prepare their voter registration card. Now, this is new. There has always been a receipt with the paper registration. And on that receipt, you would have your name or the name of the organization, a phone number, or an email address, and you would give that to the voter that you registered. What is new this year is that you are supposed to, on the receipt, give them the local registrar's phone number and address. And again, this is new. So there is a web page where you can go to the county and they will give you all that information for all 133 counties in Virginia. Now, what shouldn't you do? Because it is a class 5 felony. Number one, if you are registering someone to vote, do not ask them to register multiple times. This comes from the old days where people used to get paid for each voter registration they turned in. That is illegal in Virginia. So don't intentionally try to get multiple applications from one person or get someone to re-register if their voter registration status is current. It is also illegal to tell a voter that they need to re-register once we affirm that the information on their registration is up to date. Now, sometimes you may encounter voters who are like, oh, yes, I'm registered. But when you say, is your registration up to date? That voter may be going, I moved, or I got married. Did I change my name or change my address? That is a legal reason for them to go in and update their registration. If you check and they are active and nothing has changed, then that person is vote ready. They are good to go. Now, the next one concerns returning citizens, people who may have had a felony conviction in the past. Under our two previous governors, Governor McAuliffe and Governor Northam, they had a program of automatic restoration of rights. So when a person left prison, it might take about a month, but their rights would automatically be restored. That is no longer the case in Virginia. People who are coming out of prison now must request that their rights be restored. However, there are more than 280,000 people whose rights were restored under previous governors. So you can check, make sure that the person's rights have been restored. And if when you check the database, it shows that there is a restoration date, those people are free to register. One of the sad things that happened in Virginia was in August of 2016, when Governor McAuliffe started this program. It was really in the news cycle for only about 5 days. And then after that, you pretty much, unless you're an activist like me, never heard anything about it. There are many, many people out there who still believe that they have lost their right to vote forever. And if they are older and it was an older conviction and they have been free up to 2020, there is a very, very good chance their rights have already been restored. Now, also, we do not want to encourage people to register to vote in multiple states. So again, if someone tells you, oh, I live in Maryland, but I'm going to be moving to Virginia, if they live in Maryland and are registered in Maryland, they cannot register in Virginia until they officially move. This is also a big one. Don't destroy or make any changes to a completed voter registration application. So you might want to review the application with the voter. So if the voter neglected to check, yes, I am a citizen, you can't check that box for them going, oh, I know they're a citizen and they just forgot. So we are going to need to look and make sure that everything that is required has been completed. It is also illegal for you to repopulate or fill out a voter registration form for a voter unless the voter specifically asked for assistance. There's a lot of illegal activities. Again, it is a violation of federal law to refuse to register an individual because of race, religion, or gender, or anything else. If the person approaches you or you approach them and they are interested in voter registration and they meet the age and residency qualifications, then you register them to vote. One of the things that Virginia has always done is Virginia requires the full Social Security number on a voter registration application. It is illegal to copy or make any use of that social security number or any of the personal information that is on a voter registration form, which is why some people may tell you they will turn the form in themselves, at which point I would look up their registrar and make sure they know where to go. Or they may choose to register online because it does require their name, their address, and their full social security number, setting them up for identity theft. And again, if you ask a person if they're registered to vote and they say no, and you invite them to register and they decline, we cannot force them to register to vote. And then finally, if you have other materials, you cannot officially attach it to the voter registration application. So again, that is a totally separate transaction. If you are registering voters, you are registering voters. There is a separate person who is handing out candidate information or information about ballot measures. This is also on the news side. All right, any questions on what I've covered so far? It is very, 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 this is what we have to do. But again, yes, Lori.
Yes, I wanted to find out, you mentioned there's a database where returning citizens can find out whether their rights have been restored.
Yes.
Is there a link to that? Can you tell us the website?
There is a link in the course. It is restore.virginia.gov.
Restore.virginia.gov. Thank you.
Yes, and you may go there. And again, it's very simple. First name, last four of social, where do they reside? And then if their rights have been restored, it comes back and it will give a restoration date.
Okay,
Yes.
and the other question I had was, can we get these slides?
Yes.
Are you making them available or giving us a
Yes,
link?
I will make them available to Gail. Yes,
okay, thank you.
Because there are all kinds of links that are inside this course that you may want to use. So yes.
Thanks. Thank you.
You are very, very welcome. All right, now, voter eligibility. In order to register to vote in Virginia, they must be a U.S. citizen and a Virginia resident. So U.S. citizen, not a Virginia resident, nope, they can't register to vote here. Virginia resident, but not a U.S. citizen, no, they're not going to be able to register to vote. Now, you can pre-register voters as long as they will be able to vote as long as they are 18 on or before the next general election. Again, people need to not be planning on voting in Virginia and another state. Now, if they have just moved to Virginia, when they register in Virginia and they indicate I'm previously registered to vote in Maryland, when Virginia processes their registration, they will notify the state of Maryland and they will be unregistered in Maryland. This one is always interesting. They must not currently be declared mentally incompetent by a court of law. So if their wife says they're crazy, that doesn't count. It must be a court of law that has judged them mentally incompetent, not friends, families, neighbors. Now, If they tell you they have a prior felony conviction, then their rights must be restored after their most recent felony conviction. So every once in a while, you may encounter people where there are multiple felony convictions. They must have had their rights restored after their last one. So that normally may end up being a conversation. Well, I'm a convicted felon, I've gone to jail 5 times for drugs. That one is going to take some time. Now, 16 or 17 years old, you can pre-register voters or potential voters as young as 16. However, they will not be able to actually vote until they turn 18. So if you're doing a voter registration drive in a high school, generally they try to do it with juniors and seniors. Every once in a while, you end up with some very young juniors or seniors, depending on when their birthday is. So they can certainly pre-register to vote. They will not be able to vote until they are 18. The registrar will hold on to that application, and when they are going to be 18 before an election, at that point, they will process it. Now, the challenge gets to be, all right, you registered someone when they were 16, you pre-registered, and then they moved. They are going to need to update that registration. So that gets to be kind of an interesting situation. And restoration of rights. Anyone convicted of a felony in Virginia automatically loses their civil rights to vote, serve on a jury, run for office, become a notary public, or carry a firearm. In Virginia, the god of voting is the governor of Virginia. And what we have seen is some governors are very progressive regarding restoration of rights. They believe that when someone leaves incarceration, they have been there and served the time that was recommended by the court, and they are coming back out into society. They do deserve that second chance. A current governor has no such beliefs. So if the person has not had their rights restored, they are going to need to request that their rights be restored. And that same website, restore.virginia.gov, is where they can check, have my rights been restored? No, they haven't. Then there's another button they can check where they can request to have their rights restored. We have found that calling the Secretary of the Commonwealth generally results in full voicemail and no one answering the phone. But what the heck, go ahead and give it a try. I always tell people, fill out the form on the web and then make the phone call. Now, this is what the box looks like when you go to restore.virginia.gov. You can click the check the status of your civil rights. And if your civil rights have not been restored, request your rights be restored. If you want to have printable copies of the form, there is a link where you can print several forms, and I just keep them under my regular voter registration forms. So if someone tells me that they don't have time, then I can just write the website on it and then give that to them. And then there's also an email, ROR mail, restoration of rights mail at governor.virginia.gov. And that's the same one. Are there any questions on restoration of voting rights or pre-registering 16, 17-year-olds? Yes, Gail.
So if you have somebody who's going to turn 18, like on election day or the day before, do they have to wait until their birthday to vote, or can they early vote?
I don't really know the answer to that one. If they are going to be 18 by election day, I believe they can early vote, because in Virginia, they will officially count the early votes. They count them on election day, at which point that person would be qualified to vote.
Right. And I know that they can
count
vote
them
in
early.
primaries if they're going to be 18 by election day.
Yes,
So
yes, yeah. I will double check that. That's a really good point, Gail.
okay.
Jean.
I don't have any college students recently. So what if they're going out of state and they can vote out of state, then they don't register in Virginia, do they?
Well, anyone who is from another state and they are in Virginia going to college, they're going to need to make a decision. Are they going to vote in Virginia, the state where they go to school, or are they going to vote by mail in the home state where they reside? Now, there are some states that are more friendly to students going to school in state A and then voting by mail in their home states. Those are normally California and more northern states. States that are south of Virginia tend to be very hostile about that. And there is a fairly high probability that that vote may not be counted. Some states are actually hostile to college students. So yes, they need to make a decision. Lori.
If someone was convicted of a felony in a different state from Virginia, can that person register to vote in Virginia?
I'm going to have to check, because previously, yes, if you had been convicted of a felony in Texas, you needed to be convicted of a felony in Virginia. If you were convicted in Texas and then you moved to Virginia, Virginia wouldn't know about it.
Well, yeah, but knowing about it is not the same as telling the person you can do this and you're not violating a law. So I just
Right.
I want to know for sure that it's not a violation of Virginia law.
I'm going to double check on that. It used to be okay, but Governor Youngkin is changing things up. So what we used to be able to do may no longer be okay, out of state violations. So I'll be talking to Virginia elect tomorrow about those questions, because it was always fine. They had to be convicted of a felony in Virginia because Virginia had all the records. If the felony was out of state, Virginia didn't have any of the records.
Okay, thank you.
You are very, very welcome. The governor quietly has changed a number of things. So this is going to be a very interesting election year. All right, now, We already know that if we need 25 or more voter registration applications on paper, then we are going to have to take this training. Now, what you have to do when you're registering voters, all voters get a completed receipt, provided that they want you to turn in the registration. If they're going to take it with them, then you don't need to give them a receipt. When you get your applications, they must all be turned in within or no later than 10 days after the applicant signed. So if you're running a voter registration drive over a weekend on Friday evening, Saturday, and Sunday, you're going to look at, we have some voter registrations from Friday. That 10 days runs from Friday. That is the oldest signature that you have. So you might as well turn them all in at once. All right. And then again, we've already talked about don't destroy it, don't dispose it, don't add anything to it that wasn't there. You cannot duplicate or share the social security numbers from the applications. Now, they are going to request that you compile an alphabetical list by last name of all the voters that you have registered. And when you take them down to the registrar, they get an alphabetized list of, these are all the registration forms that are in this group. Kathy. Kathy?
You're muted, Kathy.
Yeah,
There
when
you are.
when you put the list in, you don't have to put in you should social number, right?
I couldn't hear the
I'm not
last
muted now,
part.
am I?
I heard you don't have to
Okay,
put
yeah,
in, and then
I
it
had to put it on.
disappeared.
My internet is terrible today, but when you do the okay, okay, you just put the last name. You don't have to put in any other information, like, so you wouldn't put social security number in, right?
Oh, you would never repeat the social security number on anything. When I do the list, I put it last name, comma,
Right.
first
So
name,
the list
and
just has
then
to have the last name.
I list the city. So, right. And then that's just, this is sort of a directory of all the applications that are in this group. Yes. Yes, by no means should you ever, under any circumstances, copy the social security number. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome. All right, now, if a voter tells you, oh, and they find out that maybe they thought they had previously been registered to vote and they need to update their registration, or maybe they've never been registered and they're telling you, I'm going to register myself. I will take care of it. I'm not giving you my social security number on a piece of paper with all my other information. I don't know you. They can go to any voter registration office, so you can verify what county they live in, and then you can say the voter registration office for your county is here. They can register to vote in any DMV, and they can most definitely register to vote online, provided they have a DMV ID. Remember, the DMV and voter registration are connected. So when you do business at the DMV, because they already have your social security number, and you are, quote, a verified person in the system, once you have your driver's license number or a DMV ID, you can then register online. If you don't have a DMV online, then you're going to print the application and then you're going to manually turn it in. But voters can always self-register. And we've already gone through this. Now, when you sign your affidavit, you are basically going to agree. Anybody that you register, you're going to give them a receipt, even though we've got this little caveat, if they take the registration form from you and they're going to turn it in, that is considered self-registration, even though you gave them the form. You're going to basically certify that no later than 10 days, you are going to submit all your registration forms. You're not going to mark, change, add, or delete any information on the application. And I don't know if you remember, in 2014, there was a big case in Virginia where someone had collected voter registration forms, and anybody that he thought might have been a Democrat, he threw those forms away. So that is one of the reasons why they keep stressing do not destroy or dispose of any applications. And again, you will not copy, duplicate, or distribute the Social Security number. You're going to be certifying that you've completed the training and that you understand the criminal penalties, class 5 felony, and that if you want paper forms, there is a limit to 200 forms per request. So if you need 400 forms, you are really planning on doing a major voter registration outreach, then you're going to request 200, and then someone else is going to request the other 200. And I did a lot of that. I've got a much better page than this where we can talk about that. And then the citizen portal. On our outreach circle, we will be putting the citizen portal back. It's vote.elections.virginia.gov/voter information. From that portal, people can register to vote. They can check their registration status. If they are going to vote on election day, they can find their polling information. And if they want to vote by mail and request a ballot, all of that can be done through the citizen portal. Gail, would you have any interest in getting a link to our outreach circle where all these things will be on a handy dandy phone app called Outreach Circle?
Sure.
But okay, all right. I mean, there's no charge for it. We have a bunch of circles, so we can make a UCC circle. And when we add all the Virginia things in, we'll just put you on Virginia, and everything that we do for Virginia, you're going to get it.
Great.
Now, here's the application itself. You'll notice that some fields have an asterisk. Any field with an asterisk must be filled in. So they must indicate, yes, I am a citizen. They must include their full Social Security number, unless for some reason no Social Security number was ever listed, at which point they have to check that box. We need a birth date, and then they want, notice it doesn't say sex, it says gender. They can put in whatever they want. They want to say they're bi, they're trans, they're anything LGBTQI, they can put that in there. Now, under names, last name and first name is required, as is middle name. If the voter does not have a middle name, then they must check none. any field that has an asterisk, if it is not completed, that is a reason to deny the voter registration application. And I've got a feeling that this administration is really going to be a stickler on that one. Now, residence address, and it may not be a PO box. They must have a residence address so they can figure out what districts should this person be voting in. So there must be a residence address that can never be left blank. So if they say they live under the 3rd Street Bridge in Richmond, and they give the zip code of where the 3rd Street Bridge is, that is enough to be able to figure out, all right, we know what legislative districts they're in. Now, email and phone number are not required. However, they do suggest that people give either an email address or a phone number in the event there is an issue, a very minor one, with their voter registration form, and the registrar can maybe call or email and they can straighten it out. Now, they have new advice on item 3. Have you ever been convicted of a felony or judged mentally incapacitated and disqualified to vote? So that's a yes or a no. If they say yes, the new suggestion is underline or circle, I was convicted of a felony or I was judged mentally incapacitated. Which one was it? Because different courts have jurisdictions over felony convictions versus you've been judged mentally incapacitated, and they need to know where they're looking to verify. And then if you said yes, has your right to vote been restored? All right, so this is new. They used to, about 3 years back, be 2 separate questions. Now they've made them one question, and they've realized, oh, it's kind of hard to know. Do they mean the felony or do they mean judgmentally incapacitated? So they want you to underline or circle whichever one it was. That's new. And here's a sample of a correctly filled out voter registration application. So Citizen John with the address, and they have an email and a phone number. And this particular individual they are showing a middle name. If they did not have a middle name, they would have to check the none or middle name. All right. And we already talked about all that and that you can't pre-populate. We've already talked about our 17-year-olds. This they introduced last year, where they talked about establishing residence. So a person must live in a particular locality with the intention of remaining. Abode is the physical place where the person dwells. A college student may register with the intention to remain at that college, and it may be that they're only going to remain there for a year. And they may decide, I can register and vote in Virginia easier, and my vote will probably count than if I try to vote by mail in my home state. Again, you can only have a single residence because that is going to be used to determine your federal, state, and municipal legislative districts. And then people who are incarcerated but have not yet been convicted can vote. They can register and they can vote. Normally, people that are going to be registering people in jail, you are going to want to talk to whoever brings you into the jail, or you're going to want to talk to the registrar for that locality. So are they using the jail as their residence? Because that will establish the legislative districts. And normally they have an official address they want you to use for the jail, and it will not be a PO box. So we have several people that do jailhouse voter registration. Now, this is for anyone who has special considerations, Section 4. Item number 1, their active duty service, spouse, dependent, or they're an overseas citizen. Anyone who checks item number 4 is legally authorized to provide a mailing address, which can be a PO box. So again, there are no PO boxes allowed in residence addresses. In this special circumstances section, PO boxes are allowed. So if they're active duty, spouse, dependent, overseas citizen, or this is one that you could, depending on if you work with the homeless population, I am providing a mailing address because I live so rural. It isn't really serviced by the U.S. Postal Service. Theoretically, we do have some tribal land here in Virginia, but I think they have addresses. Notice the or I am homeless. So I am going to give you an address where you can mail my voter registration card. Or the other one, protected status due to public disclosure. Law enforcement officers, judges, or attorney generals. A protective order, because voter registration information can be semi-public. So they want people to use their mailing address as opposed to their residence address. I have evidence of filing a complaint because I am fearing for my personal safety from another person, or I'm basically in the Virginia Attorney General's Witness Protection Program. All right. So those are all the reasons for using a mailing address as opposed to things coming to a residence address. They are still required to give the residence address. However, the mailing address will be what would be available in anything that was outward facing. Item number 5, I am currently registered to vote in another state, someone who has just moved to Virginia. And then they need to tell you what state, if they were registered in the other state, what state that was. Virginia will contact the other state and say, cancel their voter registration. Now, Virginia is currently going to be going through a bit of an uproar with this because next month, Virginia will officially have pulled out of ERIC, the electronic registration information system. So every once in a while, when you get these states going, well, we're not going to be a part of that, we're going to leave, and you're going to replace it with what? So this is going to get interesting in Virginia. And then finally, I want to be an election officer or a poll worker on election day. Send me information. Any questions on this section as we went through the application itself? There's still one more little part, and that is the receipt at the end. Are we good? All right. And I've already walked you through all of that. If you are specifically registering, and I will correct the spelling of homeless. I just saw that. I'll correct the spelling of homeless. You may wish to have a conversation with the registrar of that jurisdiction. What do they prefer? How would they like you to list if a person is in the street? They have chosen not to go to a shelter every night. They are mostly sleeping in parks and under bridges. So again, we have to have the residence address, but what is or will the registrar accept as a residence address? And I would check this with this new administration. We've already done protected classes, and then this is near the end. The voter is going to need to sign the application. If the applicant is disabled and they cannot sign, then they need to check this box. I am an individual with a physical disability. And that would allow them, they can make their mark, and that will allow them to not need to physically sign the application. Now, the receipt. This is still what the bottom of the voter registration application looks like. I went and I downloaded it, took a look to make sure I was looking at the latest one. So you're probably going to want to produce a slightly bigger label. It would have the name of the organization, a phone number, and then an email address. But now, if you are turning in the application, you are going to need additional information. So I did a sample voter registration receipt for Caroline County. So if I'm registering voters in Caroline County, on my receipt, I would need my name, I'm with an organization, a phone number, might put in an email address, and then I would need the registrar's information so that we would tell the voter, you should be able to receive your voter registration card within 2, maybe 3 weeks. So again, that's part of the turn the forms in no longer than 10 days, because normally if we're registering voters now, there won't be this huge crush trying to process them. And if they haven't seen anything in 2 weeks, now they know I can call my registrar. Did you receive my application? Yes, it's just taking us longer to process them. Or if they go, what application? You know, kind of have a problem because you took that voter registration information, gave them a receipt, and the registrar is like, you're who? So there's a very, very much larger level of accountability with this new, you've got to tell the voter who and where their local registrar is. Any questions about this? Gail?
So I don't see how all of that information is going to fit on that little receipt at the bottom of the form.
Well, it really isn't. So my thought is that for the receipt, you can either just have the label that's got your organization name, the email address you want people to use, and the phone number you want to use. And you may have a stack of little slips that have the registrar's information. Otherwise, you're putting this in really, really, really tiny print. And the first thing I went to check was, have they modified the form to accommodate all this information? And the answer is no, they haven't. So like a lot of things I'm seeing with this new administration, they haven't really thought things through. And the other challenge is it happens frequently that you may be in one locality and you're registering voters, and someone presents themselves and they live in another county. So we are going to have blank registration receipts where people will be able to write in the name of the registrar and the address and the phone number, and then give that to the person as their receipt.
Okay,
And
so
again,
you're just
I'm
going to give
doing
them
all that.
a separate form in addition to the little tear off thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'm making a separate form to ensure I am in compliance. So if we're working in Caroline County, we will have printed versions with all of this. We will also have printed versions where there's just lines over here so we can write in another registrar.
Thank you.
Yep. And at the very bottom, provide the alphabetical listing of applicants to the registrar and the organization. Now, what I do is I stick everything in a database. You could also use a spreadsheet. And then if I've got people from multiple counties, I will say Caroline County. And then here's my alphabetical listing of the people that I registered who are in Caroline County. If I had some Henrico, I would then have another section, Henrico, and then I would list the Henrico residents. We should still be able to go to our local registrar as long as we indicate these are your counties and we've got some from other counties. The registrars, they have a method of sending information to other registrars. So you do not need to have someone show up at your voter registration drive from Queen Anne County, and now you've got to drive to Queen Anne to drop off that registration. You can turn them all in Caroline County, and they will get that registration to Queen Anne. We've already talked about this one. Applicants must use their current address. They cannot provide a future address. Our best friend is vote.virginia.gov. We've already talked about the receipts, and completed applications can be delivered to any voter registration office, or we can take them to Richmond to elect. Now, how do voters know they're registered? The registrar will read the application, and then they will send a notice to the applicant, letting them know that their registration was accepted. Normally that acceptance will be their voter registration card. If the application is denied, they will get a denial notice so that they know we were not able to register you to vote. In the old administration, the previous administrations, they gave a reason. I do not know if this new administration will give a reason. Any applicant who does not receive either their voter registration or denial notice within 14 days should contact their local registration office. And that's why they want you to do that. So again, everybody will have a copy of this. You will have the elections.virginia.gov/voter ed website. They've got Mythbusters, how you can get involved, help with elections, voter education. We now have same-day voter registration. The important thing to make sure voters know is that if they use same-day registration, they will be given a provisional ballot, meaning the ballot will be counted once their registration is approved. If their registration is not approved, then their ballot will not be counted. So we do have same-day registration. We have the list of acceptable IDs for voting. Virginia is not a photo ID state. We are still a voter ID state. And then we have an election coming up November 7th. That is the general. Early voting begins September 22nd. The last day to register to vote is October 16th. And the last day to apply for an absentee ballot is October 28th. And the offices that are up for election are all 140 Virginia General Assembly seats, 40 in the Senate and 100 in the Virginia House. Now, the affidavit, we took the course and we are ready to say, yes, put me on the list of certified voter registrars, and I want to order my forms. So I will put the link in the chat in case you want to do it immediately when we get done. Otherwise, it is in the presentation. It is a very simple affidavit. Your name, do you want to have an organization? Then it wants your address. And then, do you want voter registration forms? I don't want any. I want 100, I want 200, or I want less than 100. So I'll go to my local voter registration office and I will get them. What is new this year? And then you're going to answer, I abide, and I'm going to do all these things. What is new is that they will email you a certificate once you complete the form. That is brand new. Used to be you completed the form and there was nothing. Radio silence. Now, when you click submit, in about 5 minutes, you're going to get a certificate of completion from Virginia Elect. And if you have any questions, Vicki Mainwaring is the liaison for third-party voter registration. Laurie.
You said we can contact our local registrar to get fewer than 100 forms.
Yes.
I'm thinking I could probably conduct voter registration and event on Saturday if I have the registration forms to your, in Fairfax County? I mean, is this like you can go there and pick it up without having to deal with the mail?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, yes. You also have the ability to just print the forms because they are online and you can just print 20 copies.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
just go online and print the forms. I don't need to
Yes.
certify anything.
Well, right,
How
technically
does that
anybody can
work?
print the forms without being certified, but you should not register voters without being certified.
Okay, so just to be clear, I should go to the website that you have given us, this FS 28 form site,
Yes.
get to fill out the affidavit, and I can also go online and obtain the form and print it out.
Right. So
Okay.
here's the actual form online. So you would just fill this out, answer all the questions, click submit, and then let me find Virginia voter forms. The forms, voter registration. There should be the ability to download the form. The form is not here. They moved it.
I'm on the affidavit site and they actually have the PDF. So give me 1 second and I'll copy and paste.
Oh, lovely.
Looks like
Lovely,
that's what it
lovely.
is. I haven't confirmed, but
Yeah.
I'll copy and paste in the chat.
All righty, great. Yeah, they used to keep it under voter forms. That's interesting. All righty. Yeah, state forms. Virginia voter registration application. There it is.
Oh,
You
okay,
can download that and print it.
great, thank you.
Yep. And if you only need 20, you can just print them. And whenever you need more, you can come back in and you can print. And yes, they give you a very, very small area to put in all that information that they now want. So yes, it's just not under online forms, it's under state forms. And then they have it in Spanish as well as Vietnamese, as well as that is probably Chinese. I think we're going to be happy with the English version. All right, do we have other questions? Kathy?
Can you put the link in to get our certification, please?
Yes, I
chat.
most definitely will. I had that up. Here it is. I will drop that in the chat. This is where you're going to go to certify that you have completed the training. Fill that out. Make sure your email address is correct, and they will email you your certificate.
Good evening, this is Marvin. I was going to urge everyone who becomes certified to please let us know that you're certified so we can just keep track of who's certified in Virginia. We want to keep track of this as we're talking with our partners and talking with potential funders. We want to at least let them know our capacity as well as the relationships that we have. And then also we want to provide opportunities where if others who may feel a little bit hesitant or fearful about taking on such a task, maybe they can partner up with you and your congregation to see how it's done. And maybe that can be a way of encouraging them to get certified as well.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Yep.
Andrea, do you want to say something about those little cards you can get that have the voter ID requirements on them?
Yes, those cards are from an organization called Vote Riders, and let me get their website up. And these cards are free for organizations that are non-partisan or that are 501c3s. So when you go to the Vote Riders site, just go to partner and choose order voter ID information cards. And then you'll come down here to order cards now. And then you will choose what state you need. This is loading. There we go. And then you'll just scroll down and say, I need Virginia IDs for voting. And how many do you want in English? How many do you want in Spanish? And then on the next page, they're going to need you to give your name and your address. And then they will ship you the cards. Yes.
They also want the tax exempt number of your organization.
Yes, they do. They do. I can check. I normally have about 3,000 or 4,000 of these cards, and I do have the cards from January of 2022. So if you are in the Richmond area, I will be happy. Kathy, you're in Caroline County. I will be happy to give you a few hundred cards because I always have them. And I have English and Spanish.
That would be great. That'd be great. I'll figure out how to get them from you.
All right. Yep. Well, I'm always here. I'm still working at home and I rarely go anywhere. All right.
So could we
any
spend
other
5
questions?
minutes talking about postcards?
Yes. Okay. We will be releasing our Virginia addresses on July 28th. And what I'm going to do is bring up our postcard site and drop that link in the chat for you. All right. And let's go to that page. So we are ready to postcard for the Virginia election. We will be postcarding BIPOC, Black, Hispanic, and Asian American voters. So I normally have 2,000 or 3,000 postcards here in the South, here in the House. So the regional organizer for us is, let's see, what email, ROV, DMV, or are they DMV, ROV? I'll look it up and figure it out. It's really Roxanne Rucker and Nancy Waugh. So you can order your postcards directly from them. And well, not order the postcards from them, but you can rov.dcmv@gmail.com. That's who you would contact, and then they will provide you with the addresses.
Andrea, do you know when when they should be mailed?
Yes, postcards, we're asking people to hold them until at least September 8th. We don't want to send them too soon. People will lose the postcard.
Right.
So we get the addresses to you early because we know it's going to take a while for you to get them all written. But we're saying hang on to them until September 8th. And we have a local postcard vendor right in Richmond, Sir Speedy Richmond. And so they have a 4th postcard on equal rights, and all their postcards say Center for Common Ground. You can also get postcards from Vista Print. So, and then as I said, you can also get postcards from me. So they've got postcards at Vista Print, and we let people know, because registrars, election officials, we've sent more than 14 million postcards, know our postcards. They can only be used for Reclaim Our Vote, non-partisan 501c3 campaign. So don't say, oh, I've got a few postcards left over. I'll use them for candidates that I want to do work for. No. Our postcards can only be used with ROV authorized script or ROV authorized campaigns. So postcards from Vista Print have to be shipped in. It may take you longer to get them. The price is a little bit better than what Sir Speedy, which is a small woman-owned shop in Richmond, can do. I pay for all the shipping for Sir Speedy. So whatever shipping would be, you are only paying to buy the cards.
Are you planning on doing
And
any
we-
texting? That
Yes.
I
We
like
will be
doing that.
texting, and we will be phone banking. Our phone banks are going to open probably on August 21st. There will be a light smattering. There will then be, we'll be working in about 20 races. There will then be a lot more phone banks that open around August 28th. Texting will begin on September 1st. Yes. So again, the really fast things we're doing later to get closer to the election so that it's still fresh in people's minds. Now, for the primary elections, and people really don't vote in primaries in Virginia, unfortunately, there were 15 races that we were working on. We won 11 out of 15. There were 6 of those races that we won where everybody said, you're never going to win those races. We don't know why you're wasting your time. Yes.
So I will be sending an email out through the network with all the details about the postcarding sometime in the next couple of weeks.
All right, great. And I'm going through the presentation right now to spell homeless correct. So I'll fix that. So not quite sure what was going through my brain on that one. So, yeah. And then Gail, you will have that later, probably in about, 5 minutes.
All right.
All right.
Anything else, Kathy?
I forgot to take my hand down, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. All right. I mean, and it is 8:29. We've finished right
Right
on
on
time.
time. Yes.
Yes.
You're a pro.
Yes.
Thank you again, Andrew.
Thank you
Oh,
very much.
It
Like this
is
isn't our
all-
annual.
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
I know this is one of my favorite things to do. I was so looking forward to this. This
Good.
is lovely. Lovely.
Great.
All right. Have a
All
good night,
right.
everybody.
Good night,
Good
everybody. Thank
night,
you for being
Night.
here.
everybody.
We'll be in
Take
touch.
care. Dale,
Night,
thank you
everybody.
as usual